All right, let's get right into it. There's this story that's been absolutely blowing up online, and it has the entire tech world talking. We're talking about a super detailed, month-by-month prediction of our future. Our very near future, that is. And it all culminates in the arrival of superhuman AI. The whole thing's called AI 2027, and yeah, it went completely viral. And this is the quote that really kicks the whole thing off. It's a massive claim. And listen, this isn't coming from some random blog post. The AI 2027 project, it's the work of a team of, well, heavy hitters. We're talking former OpenAI researchers, the #1 super forecaster at the Rand Corporation. These are serious people putting their reputations on the line with this prediction. And that's the key to why this thing got so much attention. See, they didn't just write a cool sci-fi story, they presented AI 2027 as a serious, data-driven forecast. They backed it up with what they call rigorous modeling, complete with appendices, charts, even simulation code. And that, right there, is what sparked this massive, and I do mean massive, debate. Which brings us to the big question, right? The one we're here to investigate. Is this thing actually science? Or is it just really well-packaged science fiction? So that's what we're going to do. We're going to pop the hood on this viral forecast, look at the story it tells, and then really dig into the models and the math behind it all. Let's find out if this is a clear-eyed look at our future or something else entirely. Okay, first things first. Let's get a handle on the actual story that AI 2027 lays out, because it's a really dramatic, super fast-paced scenario. They're basically describing an intelligence explosion that happens in just a couple of years. So yeah, buckle up. So it all starts pretty tame, mid-2025. We get these first AI personal assistants, but they're kind of clumsy, not super reliable. But then things just go into overdrive. By January 2027, an internal AI they call Agent 2 is suddenly tripling the speed of research. Just 2 months after that, in March, Agent 3 shows up, and this thing can code 30 times faster than the best human on the planet. By summer, things are getting tense. You've got a full-blown US-China AI arms race. And then, by December 2027, it's game over. Artificial superintelligence arrives, an AI that is way, way better than us at literally every mental task. I mean, that's an incredible story, right? It's so specific, so detailed, and let's be honest, pretty terrifying for a lot of people. But it all forces you to ask the most important question of all. How in the world did they get those dates? January 2027, March 2027, where does the 2027 in the title actually come from? And that question, well, it brings us right to the next part of our investigation. We're done with the story for now. It's time to go into the engine room and actually look at the models that are supposed to be powering these wild predictions. And trust me, this is where things get really interesting. Okay, so a core idea behind their model, especially for those super fast predictions, is this thing called a super exponential curve. Now, this isn't your standard exponential growth, where, something doubles every year. No. Think of this like an accelerator that has its own accelerator pedal. With every big leap forward, every doubling of AI skill, the time it takes to make the next leap gets 10% shorter. The speeding up speeds up. So you've got this curve where progress is just going vertical, right? It sounds incredibly powerful. But then, a critic of the forecast asked a brilliant question. He said, okay, let's take their model, using their own numbers, and just let it run a little bit longer. What does this curve predict for the world just a few years past their timeline, say for the year 2030? Well, the answer is complete and utter gibberish. You get a negative imaginary number. I mean, what even is that? What's happening is that the math itself literally breaks down. The way this curve is built, it's mathematically guaranteed to shoot straight up to infinity and then just start spitting out nonsense within a few years. And that's not a fluke. It's baked right into the model they're using. Now you might think, okay, that's a weird math quirk. But as one really deep critique of this forecast pointed out, it's more than a quirk. It's the first major crack in the whole crystal ball. And believe me, it is not the only one. So this is a version of the graph that the AI 2027 team shared pretty widely. One of the authors even called this exact thing AI 2027's prediction. And you can see why it was so convincing, right? I mean, you look at it and that curve seems to fit the recent data points almost perfectly. This visual, right here, is what sold the story to so many people. But then a computational physicist took a much closer look and found some pretty big problems. First, the public graph uses a 15% improvement rate, but if you look at their actual code, it uses 10%.
Second, it's conveniently missing the first two data points from the original source, data points that would make that perfect fit look, well, not so perfect. And here's the kicker. This nice, smooth curve doesn't even match what their own simulation code spits out. Now, in their defense, the AI 2027 authors have said that, look, this simple super exponential curve isn't even their preferred method. They say their real, more robust forecast comes from a second, more complicated model. It's called benchmarks and gaps. All right then, fair enough. Let's take a look at that one.
And what we see here might just be the biggest bombshell in the entire critique. So the model has two parts, benchmarks and gaps. The benchmarks part is supposed to be the objective, data-driven piece. It's meant to calculate AI progress by fitting a curve to real-world data. But when you look at the actual simulation code, that whole calculation is just ignored, thrown out completely. Instead, the start date for the forecast is just a subjective guess that the forecaster types in. The whole data-driven part of the model gets replaced by a gut feeling. And the inconsistencies just keep piling up. For example, the model's own math concludes that AI research and development speed has already jumped up by a massive 66% since 2022. But then if you flip to the appendix of the very same report, you find the forecaster's own personal estimate, and he says the increase is only somewhere between 3 and 30%. The model's conclusion directly contradicts the expert's own real-world belief. Okay, so after peeling back all these layers, after seeing all these cracks in the foundation, where does that leave us? I mean, if this super specific viral prediction has this many problems under the hood, how are we supposed to think about the future of AI at all? Well, here's what the critic points out, and it's a really crucial point. All of these grand, sweeping predictions are built on an incredibly small foundation of data. We're talking about just 11 key data points from historical reports on AI progress. And when you have that little information, you can tell a lot of very different stories about what's going to happen next. I mean, using those exact same 11 data points, you could tell the new normal story. You assume the recent speedup is here to stay, and boom, you get superhuman coders sometime between 2027 and 2029. Or you could tell the Mitra story, just using this simple long-term historical trend. That pushes the timeline out to 2031 to 2035. Or, hey, what about the last gasp story? Maybe AI progress is about to hit a wall, like pretty much every other technology in history. In that version of the future, we never hit that superhuman benchmark. Just think about that. All of these completely different futures, from ASI in a few years to never, they're all spun from the same tiny set of 11 data points. 11! That really puts the whole challenge of trying to predict the future into perspective, doesn't it? So let's be perfectly clear about the main takeaway here. The future of AI is profoundly important. I mean, the stakes could not be higher. Whether this all leads to some kind of utopia or a total catastrophe, this is one of the most important things happening in the world today. Everyone agrees on that, from the forecasters to the critics. But, and this is the crucial but, our ability to predict that future with this kind of laser-like precision is profoundly limited. The confidence of the AI 2027 story seems to be way, way bigger than the strength of the models it's built on. You know that saying, the map is not the territory? Well, in this case, it feels like the map might have been drawn with a very shaky hand. And so that really leaves us with one final thought, a question for you. Because, look, there is absolutely going to be a next viral forecast. It might be about AI, it might be about the climate, who knows? And when it lands on your screen with its slick charts and its incredibly compelling story, what are you going to do? Are you going to ask what the story tells you? Or are you going to remember to ask, how was that story built?